Alright, this is for Class 7, Earth's Atmosphere, Chapter 1.3. And I wanted to stop with something that's not in the book, because the book, I think, thinks you already know this. So it assumes you know this, so I think most of you probably have never seen this before. That's why I'm going to go over it now. To see myself in the camera. Alright, so energy travels in waves, as we said in the last video, but how fast the wave moves is very, very important. The quickness of how fast the wave does this, we call frequency. I wrote it many times, frequency, frequency, frequency. That's, if you know the word frequent, that means how often. So we have different frequencies. If you can imagine, it can go as slow as you want, a wave can go super slow, or it can go very, very fast. And these have different properties. So the very low frequency waves, we call them radio waves. We use them for radio, to send radio signals, or if you listen to the radio. And the next one, the third one here, well, let's skip to this one. This one's so-so as far as the speed. We call that light. That is the waves that light travels. That's why we can see it. This is something we can see. And if you remember, Roy G. Biv starts with red all the way to violet, right? So naturally, before red, we call this infrared. Infra means like before. So before red is infrared, and we also call that heat. So have you ever seen like people wearing those goggles and everything looks red, things that have heat? That is because those goggles allow you to see infrared waves, which is heat. So things that are hot look red in those goggles. Now after light, things beyond violet, we call that UV, ultraviolet. Ultra means more than violet. These, when it comes from the sun, it can be harmful to your health. That's why when you go to the beach, you put on that sunblock that protects you from ultraviolet radiation. Remember, waves are radiation. Ultraviolet. And then we found something 2 steps higher, very far beyond, that we called gamma or cosmic rays. Those are very, very high frequency. But there was something in between that and UV that we found out. If we use that frequency, we can see through people's body, but not through their bones. It allows us to see bones. So there's a big question mark. We didn't know what to call them. The scientists who developed it didn't know what to call these waves. So if you've taken math before, when you don't know the value of a number, you put an X on there. And that's why we call them X-rays. That's where X-rays come from. We didn't know what they were, so we put a big X. But in order, there are radio waves, heat, light, ultraviolet, X-rays, and then gamma rays. So now, at the beginning of the chapter, this is our same one from 1.2, but there are 2 things that I think you should know so that you don't get confused. Ultraviolet radiation is radiation that comes from the sun, that is not heat, that is dangerous to us, UV. Now this UV, if we didn't have anything to protect the Earth, this could kill us. If we didn't have this thing out here called the ozone layer, we could die from this. This causes cancer, and this is not very good for you. So what is this ozone? Ozone is just made out of oxygen. But it's 3 oxygen molecules. That's why we call it O3. It's ozone. O2 is the thing you breathe, but O3 is ozone. Ozone has a very special property that can absorb UV. Why is that good? That means UV doesn't touch us. It does, but not a lot. But this shield around the Earth absorbs the UV. So the ultraviolet doesn't hit us, and we are mostly protected. Now, this ozone layer should not be confused with atmosphere, which is actually closer to the Earth. This ozone is a little bit higher up. These are not the same thing. So this heating is not related almost at all with the ozone layer. There is ozone in the atmosphere, but this is a little bit of ozone, this is a lot of ozone. Shield, atmosphere, a little bit different. There are two different kind of shields. The atmosphere causes something, this bouncing back and forth and heating up the earth. This is called the greenhouse effect. And why is it called greenhouse effect? A greenhouse is a room where you grow plants, and it has like a big glass thing, and heat gets trapped there. That's why it's called a greenhouse, because it's good to grow plants there. Same thing happens with our earth and the atmosphere. The atmosphere causes this bouncing around of these waves that heat up the surface of the earth. That is the greenhouse effect. In the next chapter, in 1.4, you'll learn of something, well, let's just call this 1.3 and 1.4. Beginning of 1.4. And this is called, I'll leave it for the next chapter. I won't do that now. So that's all for now. The next one we'll talk about the ozone layer and ozone depletion, which is not related to the greenhouse effect. This is heating up of the earth, and this one has to do with the harmful radiation. Different, okay? Very important.